According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average tenure in a position is 4.6 years. If you're over the age of 45, it's closer to 7. But the bottom line is this: we don't interview that often. And because of that, it's completely natural to go into the interview feeling a little anxious. But the best advice that I can give is to prepare in advance for the interview. So you may be thinking, well, how do I prepare in advance for an interview when I have no idea what kind of questions that I'm going to be asked? Well, there really are common questions out there that are asked in just about every interview. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? What happened at your last job? What kind of salary are you looking for? What do you think your biggest weakness is? But the question that really worries people are the ones that start out with, can you tell me a time when, or can you give me an example of? A lot of people struggle with these kind of questions because they have to think on their feet and they have to come up with something and not sound like they're rambling on and on and on. The best way to prepare for these kind of questions is through creating source stories or star stories. Now, a source stands for a situation, an obstacle that you encountered, the action that you took, and the result that came about that action. The star story is the situation, but instead of an obstacle, it's just really the task, the action that you took, and again, the result that came about that action. So you may be wondering, well, that's all fine, but how do I create source stories and star stories when, again, I don't know what kind of questions that I'm going to be asked? Use your resume. So let me give you an example of a source story. When I left my position in corporate America, I had a small following, small client base, that is, of clients, and that was not going to nearly be enough to keep me going financially. I needed to increase my client base very quickly. And so I started facilitating meetups at local coffee shops. And although they were successful and I was actually maxing out the participation and even had a wait list, the most people that I could ever get in front of in a coffee shop was 10. There was just physically no more room than to have 10 people. And when you have 10 people, you may be lucky if you sell one package. I think I ran a couple of meetups without not even selling anything. You need more numbers than just 10 to be able to start getting the sales. So I started looking at what other successful coaches in the industry were doing, and one of the common denominators I found was that they were using webinars. So I started looking at webinars in the market, and I researched Zoom and Google Hangouts and Adobe Connect, WebEx, before actually settling on Webinar Jam. Webinar Jam was subscription based. It offered all the bells and whistles that I needed, and it was affordable. So I went ahead and purchased that, created my first webinar. I advertised it through running ads on Facebook for about a week, and I had over 75 individuals. And with that, I had several clients that bought into that during the first webinar. That is a source story. You saw that there was a situation there. There was an obstacle that I faced, which was the coffee shops and only being able to get in front of 10 people at a time. There was an action I took, and there was a positive result. How did I come up with that particular source story? Well, what I did was I went down the bullet points of my resume, and as you can see on this one here, I had a bullet point that said facilitate and workshops and online webinars. I took facilitate workshop and online webinars and made a story out of it. And this is what you need to do. You need to go through your resume, bullet point by bullet point, statement by statement, and come up with a SOAR or a STAR story with it. Now, here's the beauty of doing it this way. If you're in front of the hiring manager and he is reviewing your resume and he comes up and says, can you tell me a little bit more about this particular event? Well, you'll have a story already made up that is concise, to the point, has a format, and you can deliver within 2 minutes. Remember, when you're answering an interview question, minimum 30 seconds, no more than 2 minutes. And 2 minutes are usually for the stories involved, the star and the soar. But also, you will be able to use these stories for multiple questions that can come about. In my case, if I was interviewing, somebody might ask me what my experience is with social media. I could do that. Ask me a question about business development. I could provide that same exact story. This is the beauty of creating SOAR stories. They can be used in multiple different ways. What I would encourage you to do is create 20 to 25 stories. You're not going to be able to do that all in one day, but you'll create these, you'll print them out, have them on either maybe an Excel document or a Word document, but then you can refer to them. So let's say next Thursday you have an interview at 10 o'clock in the morning. You get to the place at 9:30. You sit in the parking lot and you review your SOAR stories or STAR stories for the next 30 minutes. You will walk into that interview a lot more confident and a lot more prepared. I guarantee it. And by the way, if you are in the interviewing stage, make sure that you check out my free download below, the top 5 interview questions that any hiring manager really wants to know about you. And I also include the best answers to those questions.